This case is part of the 411 series of unexplained disappearances in wilderness areas, national parks, national forest, and how there's no explanation on how they just vanished. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the mystery theory. You guys requested soft spoken case, so that's what we're doing today. I am going to cover a case that it was very, or it is still very fresh in my mind, and it happened into the year 2004. We were talking about it in the comments with Haley from the Empress ASMR, and I thought I'd share this very random case and also part of the 411 series. It all started with a camping trip. This was supposed to be one of those Boy Scouts trips where not only the leaders but parents are invited to go. They have a limited amount of people they can invite, but in my experience, being a mom who had a kid in the Boy Scouts, depending on the size of the group, it's how many people was needed to kind of help the leaders and keeping an eye on the kids. They were gonna go to Cuberant Lake, which is located in the Uinta Mountains in the Wasatch National Forest. This is in northern Utah. I will explain a little bit about the lake because it will give you a better perspective and idea on how this disappearance is kind of crazy and seems almost impossible. The lake sits in a basin at about 12,000 feet. To the east of the lake, there's a steep mountain leveling off at 11,000 feet. On the other side of the mountain, there is a steep cliff. To the south of the lake, Mount Marshall at an elevation of 11,300 feet. So, 2/3 of this lake is surrounded by a large mountain, and the lake sits in kind of a bowl. There is one entrance and one exit, and this is on the west side of the lake. Going out through that exit takes you to another area with 7 different lakes and a lot of people there really enjoy going from one lake to the next to see how much they can fish. Those are not the only lakes there. There are 100 or so other small lakes in the same area. All those lakes are surrounded by mountains that are very, very tall and very similar to the one we're talking today. Kevin was a leader and a father in this Boy Scout trip, and he was taking his son Garrett. You probably know his name, Garrett Bradley, because it became kind of a mainstream case. Garrett was 12 years old, so he was not a little kid who needed 24/7 supervision. However, I feel like a lot of these Boy Scout camps take enough people to keep an eye on everyone, especially if one of those is the parent. I have to say that I had my youngest son who was in the Boy Scouts, and I'm looking that way because he's right there. And I only let him go to those camps when my next door neighbor, she was a good friend, and she had a son that was also with the Boy Scout. And so when she went, I would let my son go. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let him. I feel like this was such a big case that a lot of people kind of got a little bit afraid of this very typical kind of Boy Scout camping trips. It was supposed to be a fun time, and they were going to go fishing, which is something that both dad and son enjoyed. They woke up early on August 20th, 2004, and they headed to the lake. It was about 200 yards away from their camping place, and they wanted to get a head start. The short version of what happened is that Kevin was kind of rigging the pole while Garrett was walking around. He ended up falling or getting his feet wet, and he had shoes and socks. Garrett was okay to stay and fish. After all, it was kind of in the middle of August while it's still warm. But after a while, he decided he wanted some dry socks. So he tells his dad he wants to go back to camp, get dry socks, put them on, and come back to continue fishing. Kevin knew that other boys that were fishing already also wanted to go back to camp. So he was okay with that idea, knowing that the kids would follow along. However, he kept an eye on his son until he made it to the right path to go to camp. Mind you, that is the only way in and out of the lake. He lost sight of his son, Garrett, when he got into the only kind of covered area, wooded area, but he assumed that he'd be right back. 25 minutes later, they realize that he's not coming back. So Kevin went back to camp to go check on his son. Once he gets there, he starts asking if anybody had seen him, but nobody, no leaders or boys, had seen him come back. He immediately told the leaders, and he started running towards the lake, calling Garrett's name. I'm only assuming that he thought that if Garrett was not in the camp, that he came back to the lake and maybe went with somebody else, other boys, or just didn't go straight to his dad. However, he couldn't find Garrett back at the lake. The Summit County Sheriff's Office was notified immediately. Everything happened very fast, and they searched the entire area. Keep in mind that it would have been almost impossible to leave the lake through any other way. Either he would have had to climb a mountain or kind of go down a very steep cliff. So they looked everywhere, but concentrated the search in the entrance and exit to the lake. The authorities didn't believe this was a kidnapping. Really, the closest road to them was, well, you had to walk for about an hour to get there. So it didn't seem plausible that somebody took the time to walk an hour, find Garrett, and walk another hour out while, taking this 12-year-old kid who could have screamed or asked for help, maybe deny walking. So the police was really not sure what could have happened. So they contacted the FBI. Now, according to David Pilates, who is an expert in this kind of disappearance, the FBI really doesn't cover missing persons cases. That is not part of their job, but in this case, they participated on that search. The only thing they could find was a Nike sock on top of a boulder in a boulder path that really would be out of Garrett's way to go there. Soon enough, that same day, a storm rolled around, and it was freezing rain, hail, and even snow in the higher altitudes. In the end, the authorities concluded that Garrett probably got lost and died because of the weather. Now, why is this case one of the most known cases in the 411 series? Well, I'm going to go through some of the interesting facts, going based on data, and I will let you be the judge if this is an interesting compilation of disappearances, if this is just something that they were lucky to live through, or if they are connected. Dennis Martin vanished when he was 7 years old on June 14th, 1969, from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee. Samuel Bohelke vanished when he was 8 on October 14th, 2006, from Crater Lake National Park. I covered Samuel. I don't know if it was here on YouTube or if it was on Patreon. So if it was here on YouTube, it's a super interesting case. So if it is available, I'll link it on top of the screen and in a comment pinned down below. Also, Danny Greenwood vanished from Reservation Lake, Mount Valley in Arizona. Now, these are just names, dates, and places. But what ties them together is that they all went with their fathers to a national park, forest, or wilderness area. It was only a guy's trip, so no females were around. They disappeared between June and October, and specifically in Dennis and Garrett's search included the FBI, even though it is said that they don't cover missing people's cases. Out of all these disappearances, the one where the kid was in the most remote area was Garrett's case. The police investigated Garrett's dad, leaders, and people that were in the area camping, but they really don't have any suspects. The idea of Garrett being lost and really his disappearance seems very unlikely. If you look at this lake, what surrounds it, and the idea that it sits in kind of a bowl, and there's only one way in and one way out, really tells you that it would have been very hard for Garrett to take another way to try to get to camp. He would have remembered that he wouldn't have to climb a steep mountain or go down a steep cliff. And overall, they were so dangerous that more than likely a kid of his age would have known better. Later on, I read an article, which I'm gonna mention it, but I'm not 100% sure. There was an article written on this case, and they shared that later on it was confirmed that the sock that they found was not Garrett's, but it was another boy's. I don't think that really matters, and I think it would have been easier if they just did some kind of forensic test on the sock to try to find something, DNA or something. But I don't think that the sock lead us somewhere. I really don't think so. I think it's more like the only thing they found, but not really a tip or a clue or something that would help them, I guess, in this case. All I know is that these very weird cases, kids are disappearing while they're in the care of their fathers. And the one thing they all have in common is that they lose sight of the boy. I can think of a million things that could have happened. They are in isolated areas, so it is likely that they can get lost. It is likely that they can get disoriented. There's also a possibility that the fathers are making these kids disappear for whatever reason. Maybe some kind of foul play. But the thing that really doesn't make sense to me, and before I go into that, you know that the Boy Scouts have quite a few lawsuits because of abuse. So could have somebody taken Samuel, abused him, and hid him? It is hard, but it's a wilderness area, and I guess you can never be 100% sure that you looked under every rock. However, what happens? Why can't they find them? Something. If they were taken by somebody, why not finding anything? DNA of other person, a camp because if you remember the Elizabeth Smart abduction, he went to her house and made her hike through the mountains to his camp, which is possible. So these cases can be explained with that. But how infallible that person needs to be, how perfect they have to do everything in order to leave no trace behind. So many different states too. So it's hard to say maybe it was this guy and this other guy. I think that every time I share one of these 411 cases, I am left with more questions than answers. What do you think happens when they vanish? Are they taken? What's your theory? I've heard them all, I think. From aliens to Bigfoot to, I don't know, kind of supernatural things. Because natural things, animals and people, leave marks. And I guess in this case, we can find them. So let me know what you think.